really engage the audience. So we did test screen it. Oddly, the fake ending, always, people loved it. I mean, that was never, ever a problem. Maybe early on, but from that point on, everyone was cool with it. There were certain tricky areas. You know, I think one of the tough things was, you know, there's this natural inclination that you're like, get to older Cheney, I want to see the Iraq War. But we really felt like we've got to see him become, you know, start to get the taste for power in his mouth. And those Rumsfeld scenes were so important. And we felt like the Reagan Revolution was so important. So you try and balance it with an audience. You try and be like, okay, I get it, we've lost the energy. Let me fix that. But at the same time, this is happening. Too bad. And so you kind of like get this balance between the two that goes on. And the test screenings were incredibly helpful.
And were there things that you liked that you had to lose? Like I read somewhere, maybe, I don't know if this is true, that there was a musical number in the movie.
There was, he's not kidding. There was a giant musical number around the time that he was learning from Rumsfeld. And it was with Brittany Howard from the Alabama Shakes. It was a huge dance number, and it was all about, you just gotta do what you gotta do to win the game. And it just didn't work. It was like we put it in, and it was like, honestly, it became a choice between the moment of him hearing about bombing Cambodia or the musical number. And I felt like the bombing in Cambodia gave you that taste of power and weight more than the musical number. So we'll release it. It'll be as an extra scene when the movie comes out. And it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, you have Greg Fraser, one of the best DPs on the planet, Nick Britell, one of the best composers, Brittany Howard. It is spectacular, but like in the flow of the story, it did not work.
You know, writing a movie like this just seems to me like it must be such a monumental undertaking. And I guess I'm curious, you know, you mentioned all the books you were reading, journals you had. At what point do you actually sit down at the computer or the typewriter and start writing? And do you start that in the midst of the research? Do you get all the research in your head first? How do you approach that?
It kind of comes out where you're reading, you know, I was about 5-6 books in. And then you're kind of recycling, and you're constantly rereading the books as you're doing it, and you're constantly reading articles. And about 5-6 books in, I started to have a shape. So that was like the rough outline. And so the research and the outline kind of went hand in hand. So that was it. It was research and outline were kind of the same thing. It took like 8 months. I mean, it was, I've never done a movie like this. With The Big Short, we had Michael Lewis's book, and then I still had extra economists that I was talking to, like Adam Davidson and other people, which helped a lot. But with this movie, there was a lot of great books and a lot of great journalism, but they were mostly about little pieces of Cheney's life. There was not really that book out there that did the whole sweep. And so, yeah, I realized early on we had to put it together on our own using these books. And it was tricky, but it was fun. I mean, we were definitely into it. I mean, there was this moment, like I said, where you just realize the door of history is about to close on this guy. And I realized, what do I really know about it? He shot a guy in the face. They jokingly called him Darth Vader. We think he pulled the puppet strings. And you know, nearly 1 million people died in Iraq. Like, he broke the Geneva Convention. The world economy collapsed. You know, he outed a CIA spy, and on and on and on. And we're about to let this pass. I mean, it was an incredible, weird moment in my office where I was like, I so much would have rather done, you know, the new Spider-Man movie. Which I honestly, I was all for. I mean, it was a moment where they were like, hey, I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And instead I'm in my office working on Dick Cheney, I'm like, ah, shit. But then once you're into it, you get crazy about it. And then I started realizing this guy's one of the, you know, weight-bearing beings of American history. He really, truly is. It's amazing.
Well, and the whole unitary executive thing obviously has a lot of relevance now. And I think if I've got my timing right, you would have been in pre-production on this movie when Donald Trump was elected president in 2016. I'm curious, did you see that coming, and how did it affect how you saw or approached this movie, if at all?
we were actually in New York City. We were scouting, doing tech scouting for a TV show we did for HBO called Succession. Thank you. And I directed the pilot, and I was with Robin Woolley, my EP, who's here somewhere. And no, oh my God, no one saw it coming. I remember that night we were hanging out with Alex Gibney, the documentarian, and a bunch of other friends, and we had bottles of champagne because I'm like, hey, you know, I don't love everything about Hillary, but like we're about to have our first woman president. This is awesome. And so we had bottles of champagne, we all got together, and then our Frank Rich, who's a producer on the show, called and said, nah, it's not happening. We were like, excuse me? And so the night ended with like the TV off and us passing like a bottle of whiskey around in a circle. And the next day on the tech scout, like a quarter of our crew was like crying. And we realized like, actually, you know, we were already planning Vice, and we said, actually, it's even more relevant now because, and it's kind of happened. We realized that like with our 24-hour news cycle, it would just, in everyone's mind, it would just seem like it's all about Trump. And it's like, no, this has been a 40, 50-year story. This is not just Trump, the orange reality star. This is a much bigger story. So after that, we were more committed to the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the movie gets that across so clearly and concisely, and one of the things that I think works really well is your use of the Jesse Plemons character as a narrator, and I'm curious where that idea came from, because it's really a masterstroke.
Yeah, that was early on, just incredible to me that this is a guy who should have died 5 different times, and in the end, somehow at the last moment jumps the donor list and like gets this fresh, amazing heart. And then when I read that Cheney really was saying he doesn't consider it someone else's heart, he considers it his new heart, I was like, all right, that's the end. And yeah, that was very early on. There were about 4 moves right from the beginning. The other one was him and Lynn sort of, in a way, betraying Mary. That was another one that just really struck me because everything about what you read about Cheney for the first, 40, 50 years of his life was all about family. Like he did all the cooking, he did the shopping. The people we talked to and around his life were like, he loves those daughters. He loves Lynn. And then when you read that, you're like, wow, man. And then some people are like, well, you don't know if it was him. I was like, no, like 2 days later, they published an op-ed saying, or they released a statement saying they backed Liz. And what we've heard is that Lynn will still, Mary will still have dinner with Dick and Lynn on Sunday night. She'll come with her wife and her kids, but it's understood that Liz will never be there to this day. We put in the movie that, Mary said, I don't have to answer that question, because knowing the Cheneys, we would have released the movie and then you would have seen Mary and Liz together right away. So we played it a bit conservative, but it was just so heartbreaking to me. I mean, this was always the center of this guy, and you can say whatever about him for like decades, but like, and the idea that wedge issue that they used to get to power is what wrecked his family. It just was unbelievable when I was reading. It was such a Greek tragedy.
Well, it's interesting you brought up the killing, because the movie that I kept thinking of watching this again tonight was Godfather 2 for that very reason. And I'm curious if you had that movie or any other movies on your mind. Like, what were some of the films that you had in your mind as like references or touchstones?
100% Godfather 2. About halfway through the edit process, I came into my editor, Hank Corwin, and I said, this movie is Godfather 2. And I watched it like 2 or 3 times. And you look at Michael Corleone, he's a straight up sociopath. He's awful. Like when he closes that door on Diane Keaton's face with his kids behind him. And that whole movie is a shifting between Vito Corleone loving his family and then Michael Corleone being like dead-eyed. And what I loved about it was they never explained how Michael Corleone became a sociopath. They never get into it, it just kind of is. And that was a big movie, huge influence on us. We looked at that a bunch. The other movie we really looked at a lot was Sid and Nancy by Alex Cox. Honest to God, that was a movie we watched a lot. And that was a movie about just a regular guy, in a way, Sid Vicious, who fell in love with Nancy, who was a heroin addict. And if you're going to fall in love with a heroin addict, you're going to do some heroin. And God bless Lynn Cheney, Lynn Vincent. She's whip smart, you know, ambitious, beautiful, everything about her. But she was into power. And if you're going to be with her, you better be into power. And as it turned out, Dick Cheney was better than everyone around him. He was better than Lynn, he was better than Rumsfeld, and there was no one better than him.
Well, you know, I've always thought Cheney as kind of a sociopath, and yet in this movie, Christian Bale's performance like really, you know, made me connect to him in a way. And you know, what Bale does in this movie, it almost goes beyond acting to like cloning or something. I mean, he is so exactly like him, and yet, you know, in a million years before this, I would never have thought of, you know, Christian Bale as the obvious choice for Dick Cheney. I'm curious, at what point did you think of him, and what was his response when you approached him with it?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the entire movie, what movies can do that books and documentaries sometimes can't do is we can do a character portrait. So that's what the movie is. I mean, that's what we're trying to add to the discussion of Dick Cheney. And to me, the entire movie hinged on having an actor play Dick Cheney that you just had to see what he would do with it. That an actor who's not going to just play him, an actor who's going to research him, who's going to break him down psychologically, who's going to go deeper than anyone could ever go. And that's Christian Bale. And I didn't care about the physical appearance. I really didn't. I just wanted to see what he would do psychologically with him, how he would reinterpret him. And then pretty quickly we realized, oh, Lynn Cheney is every bit as important, if not more so. And then when you get to that point, you're like Amy Adams. I mean, Amy Adams is, she was born in Italy, but I think she was mostly raised in Colorado. She's a total heartland woman who was raised in that part of America. So it really became about those two. To answer your question, when I told Dale, he's like, he straight up just said, "Are you fucking crazy?" And then he knew it. He knew it right away. I was like, Christian, it's all internal. None of it's external. There's no markers. This guy doesn't want us to play him in a movie. Dick Cheney, the last thing Dick Cheney wants is for him to be seen in a movie. You could just see Christian be like, shit.
Well, one thing that's kind of undeniable about the movie, I mean, you know, you and I were talking earlier about the fact that it's, you know, kind of polarizing, but the performances just across the board are great. And I'm curious, as far as the way you direct actors, is it any different on a movie like this than on one of your comedies where I know you take a very improvisational approach and you're throwing out lines at people? I mean, are you still able to do that on a movie like this? It's based on a true story, or do you have to modify your approach a little bit?
Absolutely, and we have that in The Big Short as well, where, you know, hopefully we've done enough research that we know what we're yelling out. There's a great example in the movie when, after they convince Colin Powell to give that terrible speech in front of the UN that's just, you know, totally false and full of lies, we cut to the family having dinner. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie, actually. And that's all improvised. That's like, I just told them what to talk about. I just said, okay, American Idol was big, this was going on, and I told each character what to riff with, but other than that, it was totally improvised. So it's a different kind of improv. When you're doing like laugh-driven comedy, you're constantly attacking the scene. And, you know, with those kinds of movies, like after Step Brothers, I would go home and I would be physically tired. Like my muscles would be sore from both laughing and the focus of trying to think of jokes. With this, and with The Big Short, it was a little more relaxed, because it's character-based, and you have actors that are doing so much to bring so many details. So it is a little more relaxed, but always the last couple takes, I'll throw some stuff out. Why not? You know. And then there are several times where Christian or Amy or Sam Rockwell or Tyler Perry would say, "Hey, can I do this?" And of course, my answer is always yes. It's just film. We use it or we won't. So I'd say, as far as the degree of improv, it's about half as much as the comedies, and it's a different kind of quality. It's not as attacking. It's a much more subtle. The set is quiet. Like when we were doing Step Brothers, we would like do takes, and then as soon as I said cut, the whole crew would crack up laughing, and they would be like, "Oh my God!" Like, that's clearly not happening on this. There's much more relaxed vibe going on, which is nice. But occasionally we made the crew laugh.
Well, you know, Step Brothers was, when it came out, not